Whoops. Okay.
Into the mind of a maniac.
But what did you expect? Was it too much to protect? Did you understand they had selfish intentions when they were following you in opposite direction? You don't know the hell is coming. Everybody get on the ground. You don't know the hell is coming. Everybody get on the ground.
I got to figure it out.
I think I'll put you in my workout mix. It definitely pump you up.
Yeah, it's not terrible. I used to have it was a bit of a sillyish kind of intro, and it's still on there, but I wanted to kind of change it up, so I figured I can just kind of play around with things, and
yeah,
so it's not terrible. It's not terrible. So hi, it's been a while since I've done this kind of episode. Well's kind of drying up a little bit. I don't know. It's fine. But I have good old Dougie Fresh over here, all the way from Alaska country. So bonjour to you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So another fella I met on Podmatch, which is always fun to kind of go through. So if anyone does their own shows and that listens, take a look, man. You'll run across some cool people. I mean, we'll see if this guy falls under that veil, but I feel like it'll be okay.
All right.
But yeah, so you are from Alaska. What do you do? Like, or what did you do? Or look, full disclosure, I know what this guy does, and like it's gonna be some cool ass kind of stories. So I'm trying to play like what are you doing? No, like just yeah, I'm pretty excited because I want to hear about the weird moose stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Rich. And I don't think it's drying up your town. I think you just saved the best for last from Alaska.
Oh, okay.
We're a pretty cool state and a lot of unique individuals in the state. Again, for your audience, name's Doug Pfeiffer. My main career was in law enforcement, where I served just over 25 years with the Anchorage Police Department. That's the largest police department in the state. Many of you see on TV the Alaska State Troopers. They have about 270 officers. Anchorage Police has about 400. So by far the largest agency in the state. Anchorage has about 300,000 people locally. I was born in Homer, Alaska, which is about 270 miles south. About 5,000 people live there, super small town. But grew up mainly in the Anchorage area. And in 1996, like us all, I needed a job. And a quick story, we talked a little bit about baseball earlier. My dad's side of the family was from Baltimore. So we were traveling back east in Baltimore, and my dad wanted to show me the stadium because as Alaskans, we have zero pro sports, no giant parks. So for 50,000 people to be in one area for Alaskans, that in and of itself is cool to see. So we were driving around the stadium. It was a night game. My dad didn't have enough money to go in. And this trooper that was working overtime at the stadium stopped us because we were in the back of the stadium and prohibited area. So my dad told him, hey, these are my kids. I'm from Alaska. And of course, he's like, wow, Alaska. And so he said, park the car and come on in. So we went in this side door up to this balcony where they had cops and security. And he said, the door locks on your way out. So when the game's over. And we literally got to watch the last 3 innings of the Orioles, which I'm a huge fan. But I always remembered him in that uniform as a kid. So when I got older, I thought that might be a job I'd like to look into. I mean, it just seemed super cool. And he was so nice to do that. So I applied for the Anchorage Police Department, did a career of 25 years. I'll tell you, as a rookie, I was a little bit green behind the ears. There's nothing like police work to make you ungreen and see the world how it really is. So great experience. I wouldn't give it up at all. Best time of my life. what I did post is I acquired a lot of stories over my 25 years career to write a book. A lot of true crime books out there. A lot of ex-cops, FBI agents write true crime books all the time. I wanted mine to be different, unique, a unique twist on true crime. So I made it the most extreme sexual deviant crimes ever committed. About 80% of the crimes in the book are Alaska. I always tell people when you read it, you're going to be scared to go to the grocery store, to talk to your coworkers, and you'll never trust your neighbors again. Because I think what a lot of us don't realize is what happens behind closed doors. We see some of it, but as a cop, you see all of it.
So, okay. First of all, I think generally speaking, the I don't know, I guess the unwashed masses kind of think Alaska is just a small place, like a small grouping of small little communities, which seemingly is the case, except there are, you have Anchorage. I don't know if Juneau I don't know really. Is it Juneau? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yep, Juneau's our state capital.
Yeah. Is that, I'm assuming that's probably heavily populated.
Super small population. Our state legislature goes there, which increases it. But your two big towns are Anchorage and Fairbanks has about 70,000.
Oh, there's the other one. Yep. There we go.
Those are the two big.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously you've had boatloads of cop buddies throughout the years and talked to probably people around the nation, right? I think the biggest question I have, and if anyone has any other questions, obviously kind of chuck them in the comments or what have you, but what's the biggest difference between an Anchorage cop compared to, let's just say, a PA cop?
Yeah, great question. And there's actually a real large difference, and I'll explain it through. Anchorage, being so far remote, not connected to the US. You got to fly to get here. You can drive through Canada, but it's tough to get here. And we're so expansive. The state, is 2.5 times the size of Texas. So we're a huge landmass, especially for law enforcement. So you have the Anchorage police and the troopers. You got to cover 700,000 people spread out in an incredible amount of area. That makes it difficult. So the first thing is that typically our patrol units are single man patrolled. They're not two people in a car, where many of your larger cities have 2 officers for safety issues. But Alaska is so big that you got to kind of have one a car to be able to cover it all. Secondly, is that patrol officers in Anchorage will cover the gamut of a theft to, working the preliminary start of a homicide. Whereas in some of your big cities, your patrol cops will come out, secure the scene, freeze it, mark it off, and then detectives come in other units. In Alaska, that's not totally practical. We do some of that, but your patrol cops will really go from A to Z on that investigation and can do pretty much anything. So we have to be well-rounded. We have to be well-educated. We have to continue on our, professional upkeep on our certifications, go to classes on pretty much everything and learn it. So that's the biggest difference I've seen in my, working with other agencies throughout the U.S. I'm not patting our department on the back. I think it's by necessity that we have to, incorporate all these things and be good at them all, because you might be on a case by yourself for a while.
So does that end up equating to a better financial situation? I know a lot of those things kind of come into play with, cost of living, things like that. But I would think if you're playing, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you're playing, traffic cop, you're playing patrol cop, you're playing detective, you're playing CSI. I would think that, the pay would reflect that to a degree.
It does. I'll tell you, Alaska has a little bit of a benefit. Your listeners may not know, but 90% of our income for Alaska is oil-based, oil revenue. You've got the Prudhoe Bay, the North Slope, you've heard, that supplies a ton of oil. So Anchorage police and the troopers for a long time have had higher pay for law enforcement, based on that budget with the oil money, comparatively to our sister departments down south. I will say many of those have caught up nowadays. It's hard to recruit cops, right? And to get them in that profession, you're going to have to pay them well. If you want college educated people, if you want professional people, So the pay scale nationwide has come up. Alaska's always had a benefit of that. I will tell you, when you serve on those other teams, we break up a lot of teams. So my specialty as a cop was as a hostage negotiator. I would receive additional pay accordingly for that. You mentioned CSI. I worked the crime scene response team for 4 years. That's an additional form of pay. So you are compensated for each and every one of those areas, and depending how long you work in that and overtime and all that. But Alaska pays fairly well for law enforcement for sure.
Good. I would hope so. Just with that being, because you never really think of that, right? You never really, I mean, anyone that's really kind of delved into the law enforcement stuff and kind of the different hierarchies of, Jim's doing that, Tim's doing that, Nancy's doing that, yada yada. Okay, you don't really think like, oh, well, what if you are in a very kind of isolated kind of setup there where, we're not going to send out, whoever X number 100 of miles away to do what you could technically do right there. So that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
What made you go to the hostage negotiating side? And how many hostage, like, you don't, at the end of the day, you don't really think of Alaska and crime. I mean, everyone's crazy everywhere. I get that.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where it's like, what are you doing in Alaska? Like, what sketchy things are you doing in Alaska? Like, are there? Yeah, let me start there, actually. So, once again, crazy is everywhere. What is the prototypical crime in Alaska? Like, if that makes any sense.
It does. And I get this all the time, especially with, cops that I meet when I travel for training out of state. What crimes can there be in Alaska? It's a frozen tundra. What do you guys do? Nothing could be farther from the truth. I'll tell you. So you've got 8 months of a hellacious, dark, cold winter. We all know that being cramped inside for 8 months is tough, especially if you're not outdoors or doing things. So you get that emotional involvement, right? You get a little depression. And then two of our biggest things, which is nationwide, are drugs and alcohol. Huge issue with alcohol in Alaska, and drugs nationwide is a problem. So you combine all those and you get a lot of people that have mental issues, have depression issues, a lot of guns per capita. I think Alaska is second behind Wyoming in gun ownership, 2 to 3 guns per individual. So it can be heated when you're add alcohol to the mix, you go out. But again, drugs and alcohol dominate the landscape of crimes, which makes people do everything from murders to thefts to robberies to sexual assaults, the gamut. So really that's the culprit. But Alaska per capita is actually very high in crime. So although in totality our murders may be low from like Chicago or Pennsylvania, you guys have a massive population. But per capita, we have a high number. As a matter of fact, per capita, we have the most serial killers in the nation per capita because our populations.
Congratulations.
That's probably something we don't want.
That's fine.
Yeah. But as far as your question is why I became a hostage negotiator,
yeah,
is I tried a lot of things at the department. I loved them all. And I would say I was fairly good or decent at most of them. And then I wanted to give negotiations a try. And I got on the team, started learning it. And it's something that came natural to me. And we all know whatever it is, whether sports or something you're reading or whether you're a mechanic or whatever you do, if you're interested in it, you're going to be, it flows naturally. So I kind of by luck, I found my sweet spot as a cop, and it was as a negotiator. So then I really doubled down on that because I enjoyed it. I was actually the team leader for our team. So I ran the team. Our team was so advanced. We were trained by the feds initially out of state. And then the FBI would call upon our team in Alaska because they didn't have a hostage negotiation team. So we would respond not only in Anchorage, but statewide for any hostage negotiation situations. And we would work on behalf of the FBI because they didn't have their team locally. So we did everything.
Okay. So I was going to go into another question, but you kind of sort of answered it with the whole drugs and booze and guns. I was going to mention like, well, I mean, how many hostage situations are you dealing with? And I'm like, well, hold on. You add that little cocktail, pun intended, together. It's like, okay, no, I can see it.
Yeah. And just so you know, it wouldn't just be a murder that I would go out on. Let's say that we had a domestic violence situation where husband or wife are threatening each other. We might go out on that to calm the situation. So it's not just the most extreme. Our team may go out to prevent the extreme from getting there. So you're a lot busier than what society might imagine. You'll never hear about it unless somebody gets shot or dies, right? So we might go out 50 times in a month. You're only going to hear about the one shooting or the one homicide in your communities. But hostage negotiation teams throughout the U.S. are being tasked hourly on calls that the public never hears about.
So, I mean, why were you so good at it? You kind of took to it, like a fish to water here. But why? I mean, because that's got to be a very tense situation. I mean, well, I guess it can be tense, right? But if you have a knack for it, then you probably have the ability to alleviate that anxiety and that tense part of it. But yeah, I mean, just what about that made you so good and kind of gravitating to it because of that?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, just naturally, I have the gift of gab. I like people, I like to talk, which makes it easy. And then really with suspects in dire situations, I mean, to be frank, where they just had executed somebody, I would be very frank with them. And this was key. I wouldn't lie to them. I wouldn't sugarcoat the situation because people are smart. If you're bullshitting with them, they're going to know it.
Right.
So with the serial killer, they might say, am I going to go to jail forever? Am I going to go to jail? I'm not going to say, no, you're probably not going to go to jail. I'm going to soften it a bit and maybe say that, you've done something terrible. You're going to have to answer for your crime. And they respect that because they know I'm not, screwing with them to just get them out, arrest them, and put them in jail. So I was very candid. A lot of my interrogations or hostage negotiations were taped. When you listen back, it's almost like you and I are talking. It seems odd for somebody that just killed somebody to talk like you and I, but that's the level of conversation where I wanted to get to. I was very honest with individuals, and I think they respected that. Extremely rare that a negotiator should ever lie to an individual. The reason being is because if they catch you in a lie, all the rapport has been lost. You're not going to get anywhere. So I would teach new negotiators, don't ever lie. It's as a matter of fact, there was one time in my career where you had to lie. And this was a homicidal maniac that was executing hostages and wanted the police to go back. So the request was made for him to come closer to the window so he could see that the police had come back. Obviously, that was done on purpose to take that individual out.
Right.
Lives. But that's the only instance in my career where I've ever seen that be used. Other than that, 100% honest with individuals, and it usually works out.
Yeah, I mean, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you made a really, really, really good point because you don't really think of those people in that here and now of the whole. They're smart. I mean, they're kind of an idiot for what they're doing, but they still are a pseudo intelligent, being. And I don't care how off the deep end you are. Yeah, you literally just shot this guy in the head. Are you going to go to jail? Nah. Listen. We're just going to go to Subway, get us a sandwich, and we're going to be fine. It's like, no, you realize it's like, no, I'm going to go down for this. And I realize this, but this guy is saying, yeah, you're going to have to answer this. Well, what does that mean? Well, we can talk about that if you get your ass out here. Like that's yeah. I think the natural thought is to tell them what they want to hear. And that's not really kind of what they're necessarily looking for. I mean, what you think that they want to hear is not necessarily what they want to hear unless they say that. Like,
exactly.
Okay.
You're exactly right. Actually, Rich, you're so good. Maybe I'll see if I can get you a spot on the team now. Could use
there you go. I like it.
Yeah, to that point, I would be asked, in some of my negotiations on this thing you see on TV, get me a helicopter. I want a car with a driver. And I would just straight out tell that individual, that's not happening. So I wouldn't even promise the helicopter or say we're going to look into it. I would just be honest with them. Now,
I mean, at that point, we're gonna give you a helicopter, and here's what's gonna happen: we're gonna follow you and shoot you the fuck down. So
Yeah.
that's what's gonna happen. So like, let's not do that.
Yeah, my
Goodness gracious.
one of my favorite stories is I was working a incident where the husband had killed his wife and he was inside. He wouldn't come out. They had tear gassed him. He'd actually wrapped a towel around his head with after putting water on it, which is smart so he could breathe through it. We just couldn't get him out. He had a rifle, dangerous for us. So I negotiated with him for 6 or 7 hours. What he wanted was a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then he would come out. So after this length, he was hungry. I said, okay, you're going to come out. I sent our SWAT team to get the Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was late at night, almost 11 o'clock, but they were able to get the chicken. The guy turned, he didn't want the chicken anymore. So I negotiated several hours more. And then he decided that, okay, if I get the chicken, I'm going to come out. So I told him to run the chicken in and give it to him. In that 2 to 3 hours, our SWAT team had eaten all the chicken because they thought the guy didn't want it. And so now I had no chicken, and then Kentucky Fried Chicken was closed. So now I had to backtrack with the individual to have him come out post, no food that we had promised. That's always a huge problem, but one of those things that happen in law enforcement, nothing you can do about it. You just got to fix it and move on.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a really weird request. I mean,
food's a big one. It seems odd, but food is, from Dr. Pepper to, food's always a key one. And that's something I'll give it into because if you're starving, you're hungry, and I throw that always branch out and get you some food, cigarettes, whatever you want. I think that's key. Now, when you ask for dope, this happens all the time. I can't give you hard narcotics. That makes sense. So then I'll downplay it to cigarettes or something else like that.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. I get it. I guess I get it. I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah.
All right. So you wrote a book about shenanigans that have happened and all of these crazy things, but you kind of went the extreme route. So what do you want to talk about there?
Yeah, I did go the extreme route. And the only reason I did it is because I would tell a lot of these stories at dinner parties with friends. If we were hanging out, I would tell you at a football game, at a whatever. And then what I always found interesting is the women would dig really deep into these crimes, more so than the men, and want the nitty gritty details, which I was shocked at because I was like, thought they'd be more offended, but inevitably they weren't. They wanted the details. And I always got the quote that you should write a book about this. Well, obviously, as a cop, Anchorage Police Department's probably not going to allow me to write this book
right
at that time. So soon after retirement, I wrote the book. What I didn't anticipate, because these are real live cases that happen. If you look at Scorpio, or some are on the internet, some of our serial killers, a lot of it's public information. A lot of it, the details aren't public until now in the book, but I wanted to go extreme. So I did. I started writing these stories, and then I went to publishers thinking this is a slam dunk. It's a great book. Of course, every author thinks that. There were 6 publishers where I met with the higher ups that loved the book. They thought about it. This is over like a 12, 18-month cycle. Each and every one of them came back and said, hey, Doug, we like the book. We simply can't publish this. And it's not graphic or extreme like you're going to pick it up and be like, oh, my God. But the content and the stories really cover the gamut of all sexual offenses. And then I found a publisher finally that would take the book, edit it, bring it to completion, and get it out to the mainstream. So that took longer than I anticipated because the book's extreme and it's so different than normal true crime. And again, it's going to cover everything from necrobestiality to bestiality to the sharing of fluids in society that should never be shared at grocery stores and beyond. So that's why I wrote the book. And again, I think it'll resonate, and I think people will actually like it. But again, you're not going to believe what happens at your neighbors next door in every town USA that you think is perfect and chill. it's dark behind the scenes.
There's a morbid curiosity about that stuff, man. Like it's just there's that dark, deep, weird part of us all where, I mean, hopefully, because I'm about to show my ass here. You see a car accident, right? And you're not looking to see everyone that make sure they're all okay. That may be one of the thoughts that are happening. But I think the majority of people are like, I want to see a limb here. Not maybe that like grotesque, but you know what I mean? Like you're looking for the destruction part. You're looking for the I don't know, just there's that broken part of us that it's kind of like why you watch gory horror movies, right? You know what you're getting into, but you kind of want to see the monster and all, you want to see it rip somebody in two, and it's like, oh no, that's gross. But you're like, glad I watched it. It's just a weird, broken part of the human psyche. But I can definitely understand the non-watered down, Law and Order SVU kind of, take you're doing. This is like SVU after dark,
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's funny you mentioned that because I do your same analogy on the car crash in the book.
Do you?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, and it's really about the human psyche behind these sexually deviant crimes. And it's not that as humans we're bad for thinking these things. And really, the book's about what's your level of freak, right? Because a lot of us, and I'm not kidding, when you talk to people, downloading porn or doing something with your spouse seems freaky. You're not even in the realm of freaky once you read this book on society. So, I talk about what's your level of kink in the book, what you're comfortable with, and after the book, I think that most people are going to be comfortable with whatever their sexual, what they perceive as deviancies are, because they're not even on the spectrum, according to some of these stories. So the car crash is a great analogy, and it's just part of our human psyche where we have interest. Listen, I've seen it for 25 years. When I go to a cop conference to train, my only question is, give me your freakiest story, and I want it sexual based. It's not that robberies.
I hope you don't lead in with that, because that's pretty fucking weird.
Well, you haven't met cops yet, so in a group, that's what we lead with.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so it's because it fascinates even us, right? That deviant part of it. Homicides and robberies are all cool. I love to investigate them, but they're cool stories. But nothing tops those real deviant sexual crimes, because you're just shocked and you're like, wow, people are doing these type of things.
You're married, correct?
I am. Yep, long time.
Okay. My apologies. So this is kind of a weird question, but hey, I mean, let's kind of break the seal here. So seeing all that and knowing all that, did that mess up your, sex life with the wife?
No, actually, I think that I'm, as an officer, I was really good. What happens?
This is a weird question, dude. I'm sorry. I guess
it's all good.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to go in the book on this because I talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But what I did at work, I was great. Come whatever that, when I clocked out or finished my shift or whatever I did, I turned it off, right? And in the book, I use a lot of dark humor. You have to survive emotionally. And then I went into family life, and I was good at not holding a lot of baggage, so it didn't affect me in that aspect whatsoever. I will tell you, in the book, it's graphic, but the last chapter, I do a chapter called Teachable Tidbits. This is a weird chapter. These are little things I've seen in my career on investigating crimes, sexual crimes, that aren't really criminal, but I never thought about in my own sex life. So some of those, some of the readers will incorporate in their own sex life.
I feel like you missed an opportunity. It should have been Teachable Tidbits.
So it's that'll talk about some of the stories, and one of them that I took and incorporated in my own sex life, which is pretty minute in the whole scheme of things, but it's something that I did incorporate with my wife, and I think the readers will like that. And it's a good way to end the book and take people down a notch or two.
Yeah, you gotta wear a moose mask. That's what it is.
That's not my fetish. It might be somebody's.
You might be. I guarantee. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know. And like I said, I know it was a bit of a weird question, but I just kind of figured, it's kind of one of those deals where, there's that kind of tired old trope of, the chef comes home and makes SpaghettiOs for themselves because they're not going to cook more. They've been cooking all day. So you would just think like those traumatic things. And yes, obviously it's much easier said than done shutting that switch off from work. But, it's like, well, I saw someone just fist a fox here, and, I'm going to go home and have relations with the wife, and, it's our anniversary. It's like,
Yep, you got to turn that off. Now, I would call and tell the wife the stories because, and she was always interested in them and shocked, but she'd be my first call on whatever story it was.
Yeah. So, I guess not that there's like, God damn it, dog. So I'm wondering if what would be okay to disclose. It's not that there's censors or things like that, but also it's like, puppy. You want to come see Dougie Fresh? Come here.
What's puppy's name?
Come here.
Oh, there he is.
His name is Crosby, and he is our mascot.
What's up, Crosby? I've got a Malbec.
I don't know what that is.
That's a little golden doodle. She's cool.
Oh,
yeah. Hi, Crosby. We'll call Crosby Big Eyes.
Yeah. All right. So, what would be kind of YouTube esque, okay-ish, friendly-ish to talk about ish
in
from a story standpoint,
Oh yeah,
kind of give people a little bit of an idea what they could actually kind of, expect.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories, and there, I think that everybody's going to have a different take on what they think is cool as far as a case in the book and what's not. There's a bunch that we go through, but one of the ones that shocked me, and this was early in my career, there's a chapter called Kink and Ink. That's all about, as strange as it seems, tattoo stories in law enforcement, and where your listeners there you go, you got some. They think it never crosses. Ink and police work cross, but this was a unique case. I came out as a new cop, and we had a drug area in a bad part of town, and I decided that I was going to end, drugs in Alaska as a new cop. And there was this dealer on the street corner, and he was selling. I could tell he was selling, but I was in a patrol car, and he'd actually waved to me when I went by. And at that time, the dealer's heroin was big, just as it is now. But he would keep the dope wrapped in his mouth in tinfoil. So if the cops came, he'd swallow it, right? Because we have to have the narcotic on hand to arrest. And then, he'd throw it up when we left because we had no dope, and then he'd sell it again. Or if he got arrested for some other reason, he'd go to jail, bail out 12 hours later, poop out the drugs, clean it off, and resell it. So dope dealing is not a great job. But on this particular night, I decided that I was going to arrest him. And I waited. It was a cold night in Anchorage. It's, freezing out. So I watched him at the corner of this building out of my patrol car in the cold for about 20 minutes, and I saw the deal go down. Ran after the guy, tackled him. He was trying to swallow the hair. The other car had taken off, so I couldn't get that one. But I remember grabbing this guy, and at the time I was thinking I got to get the heroin, so I was, kind of choking him a little bit in a very professional way to keep him from swallowing, trying to get the heroin out. But he swallowed it all, and he bit down on my fingers, which kind of sucked. So I pulled out my pepper spray and I pepper sprayed him, and then he was compliant. I arrested him. I still had no dope, and I was thinking to myself, well, how am I going to explain this? I pepper sprayed the guy. I got bit. He's got no dope. I'm going to be in trouble. And all of a sudden, and if you haven't been pepper sprayed before, it's not fun. And cops pepper spray's super potent. He threw up because it's so bad. Threw up, and
I've
threw
seen
up.
people gag from. I've never been hit by it, but I've seen
Painful.
Yeah.
So he threw up these heroin packets. They were glistening, and I snatched them up in the puke and pepper spray. And I was so happy because I had the heroin. So I arrested the low-level drug dealer.
I'm just gonna clip that part. I was so happy I did heroin.
It seems weird, but I was happy because I got the dope.
Oh, it made sense. It made it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, you said this is in the mid 90s. I mean, especially now. Holy shit, dude! You can't do everything is
Oh yeah.
hyper focused. So you
Yeah.
could probably talk your way out of it then, but now it's like, no,
Yeah,
sorry.
you
Go
probably be
on.
in some trouble now. You're for sure.
Yeah.
But I got him in the back of the car. Everything was calmed down. And dope dealers, they know the thing. The quicker they get into jail, the quicker they get out. So once they're arrested, they're not really combative, which was cool. But we had, on our forms, arrest form, you have to ask a whole bunch of questions: your name, date of birth, where you live, right? And then one of the sections is tattoos. Do you have any tattoos? What are they? Similar to, if you had 2 tattoos on your arm, I'd ask you what they are. And that's for identification purposes, right? Because we can solve a lot if you're lying, saying you're not who you are. We'll look at your tattoo; they're documented. So he said he had a tattoo of a woman on his back, and I was really new and green at this time, so I didn't know what that meant. So I said, "Okay, is it your mom, girlfriend?" So the guy called me a rookie and said, "You don't know what it's a prison tat." And I said, "Okay, they tatted you in prison. What is it?" Long story short, he fucked around with me. He wouldn't answer. We go to the jail. Jail's a bit different, right? When you go to jail, there's correction officers. They're different than cops. They have complete authority, strip you down, throw you in jail. Cops don't have that authority. So I told the CEO, I said, he won't tell me what this tattoo is, and I got to write it down, right? I got to document it. He said, no problem. He's like, get your clothes off in not so nice terms. And the guy stripped naked because you don't mess around in jail because you're going to go in the hole and it sucks. And on his back was one of the most beautiful tattoos I'd ever seen. Like it just shocked me to the core. It was a full-length woman on his back, breast, long hair, hourglass figure. So I interviewed him about this tattoo afterwards, and it was one of the most incredible stories I'd ever heard. He lived in the lower 48, and he got into heroin, which they call smack, as a 15-year-old. Within 6 months, he was stealing from his parents, kicked out of the house. He was then homeless. He said he had to go to unsavory acts to support his habit. He was then arrested multiple times. He got a stint in San Quentin prison, which is in California, one of the hardest.
That's
and then,
big boy prison.
Yep, the Mexican mafia had snatched him. And for your viewership, if they don't know, the Mexican mafia runs prisons. They sanction homicides, drug dealing, all from within the prison walls. So they snatched a hold of him, provided him with heroin, with the agreement that he'd pay him back. When he couldn't, they said he could be a prison prostitute or they'd beat him to death. Well, obviously, with those two choices, you might go and be a prison prostitute. But that wasn't it. They had a tattoo artist that tattooed this beautiful woman on his back. So when other inmates were having sex with them, they were having sex with a female, not a male. But it was, and this story's in the book and a picture of the tattoo, if you want to look
Oh,
at
really?
it.
Okay.
But it was literally one of them. I mean,
Hopefully there's not like a guy in them when we're looking.
No. It's just, you're safe on that. But it really, as a rookie cop, it really flipped my switch on humanity, right? I couldn't fathom that could occur. I couldn't fathom.
That's so fucked up, man.
So when I would have talks with, schools and stuff, and people in crisis, when you think you hit rock bottom, I mean, think of this individual. That's beyond rock bottom. Whatever happened to him post, I don't know whether he died, whether he left state.
He's probably dead. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and he was younger, but I always remember that story, and I always remember that tattoo. In the book, it's called the Taboo Tattoo. Very taboo, obviously. And what's unique about the Mexican mafia is that they strictly prohibit homosexuality within their own gang. But they fully sanction prison prostitutes in prison. Kind of a stretch for me to get through that.
Yeah, there's a pun there.
But and I pun it in the book, and probably they're going to put a hit on me afterwards because they got far-reaching power. They won't like my take on them in the book, but I'm okay with that. But that's a flavor of the stories that are shocking, and to be honest, they get much worse than that.
Yeah. So fun story. I was born addicted to heroin, so I kind of did my research and all that stuff. So yeah, there's it's one of the terrible ones out there. So it'll make you do some terrible. I've never touched the shit, but wow, that is, God, what an option. Oh God.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I hate to say this. I arrested him on the dope charge. I'd rather see the guy in rehab to get his life. I mean,
right.
I think he suffered enough. I felt almost bad. Well, I did feel bad for him afterwards. I mean, there's not much in that position I can do. But he did tell me one quote, and I didn't think it was true. He said, Because I said, well, when you go to prison, how do you not get dope sick? Because he told me he gets dope sick if he's not on heroin constantly. And he said, I get heroin in prison. I was like, well, how's that possible? And he said, anything you can get on the outside, you
Right.
can get on the inside. And I kind of mocked in my mind that wasn't true. Fast forward 25 years later, never has a truer statement been said. And I realized that through my career, anything on the outside, you can get on the inside, which fascinates me that somehow our correctional facilities cannot lock down, and they can't. It comes in all forms, but it's true what he said. And it's funny, you can learn from suspects, arrestees, right? Keep your ears open. It's amazing what the information you get.
Well, yeah. I mean, if anyone's going to know the most about how to, siphon that stuff in, it's going to be the people that are literally doing it. I mean, and let's be honest, there's probably a lot of, cops on the or not cops, but correction officers on the take. I mean, that's not just like a movie and TV show trope. Like, I don't really know what they have to gain from that, but
it's cash. So their COs are relatively paid pretty low.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. And what happens is heroin will, it's not a 100% markup. It's a 10,000% markup in prison. So the cash is there for, a small amount, a gram. And then what they'll do is they'll siphon off to correction officers. Not all of them, most are good, but you can get some of those bad that financially they want the money. So they'll pay them the cash on the side since they don't make much. And that's generally how it goes. And I actually document a lot of that in my book on real cases. Unfortunately, correctional officers, especially with the Mexican mafia, the mafia has a recruitment team that recruits not only correctional officers but workers in prisons to be on the side, pay them, and get these things into prison.
I wonder why they pay them so low then. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily that would eliminate the problem, but I would say it would probably lessen it slightly. But just in general, though, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're not going to do like apples to oranges here, but I would say it's probably at least evenly as dangerous as what you were doing.
Yeah, I think they should be compensated. I think law enforcement, there's a big divide on compensation for law enforcement too, right? And unfortunately, you have officers that sometimes commit crimes or take bribes. So I think you can't pay officers a very low wage, or correction officers, because they're entrusted with so much, right? The integrity. Right. So they have to be comfortable financially. I'm not saying everybody needs to get rich, right? But your basic financials have to be comfortable, and then you can perform your duties. So I think that's a big key. And it's not federally regulated, right? Each and every state, city, municipality determines that pay scale. So it's all over the board, which I think is a little problematic, right? So great question. It's that's beyond my scope, and it's a question that's been around forever, but it does cause problems.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of shitty, man. I don't know. I don't know. This doesn't really make a ton of sense to me to kind of entrust people with like the lives of these people to keep literal order, but also realize that probably the majority of these people in here will slit your throat if you didn't have your head on a swivel. But here's your $20 an hour. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's what they're making, but kind of feels like.
I'm with you.
So, any of these stories that you have, which, I mean, this is probably going to definitely teeter on the extreme thing, so you do and say as much as you want to say. Was there ever one of these cases that you were very close to saying, yeah, you know what, dude, I'm out. I can't. I'm over it. Like, I don't have it in me anymore.
I'd say never. I know that's might seem cocky or brash, but it just didn't.
Fair.
I loved it. And
why though? Okay. Let's answer that. Why? Because it's I mean, not a knock, but it's a weird thing to really like.
Yeah, I'd say that it's I almost put it as a game. The game was for me to protect my community, and to do that, if there's a homicidal suspect out there, a murder suspect, right? for me to get him to confess in an interrogation or a proper investigation and put that individual in prison for life, right? That protects my community. So it becomes a game in my mind. It's me against him, and I've got the whole city as behind me, like rooting for me. So you're pretending a little bit, but that's really how I came about the job. Like I was fulfilled. I wasn't naive enough to believe that ended crime or anything, but in my experience, killers kill again, especially serial killers. So to put an individual like that away, to negotiate them out and free hostages that didn't get killed, that's a huge win, right? I mean, in that moment. So that always drove me. It's exciting. It's fun. It never gets old. It's always changing. So I was always motivated. I never got bored with it. But to be honest, what hurt me would be the child deaths, right? Any kid deaths, I could never put those away. I could see every one that ever happened in my career. That's something that challenged, that still stays with me today. The others, when an adult dies, I'm not saying it's good, but a child just had a different effect on me, and it was always something that I struggled with as far as law enforcement. The rest of it, I could pretty much take pretty easy.
Yeah. I think what would kill me is like animal stuff. Like I saw actually something came across the Twitter sphere today, and I'm just like, there is not enough shotgun shells for this person to eat. This guy, it was like this Aussie, or I think it was this Englishman, and he was getting for the last 10 years, like he got like 50 some odd dogs from Australia to, on camera, fuck and kill them. I'm like, no, what? Why? What? Like, brutal. I can't. Like, first of all, what? I don't even understand the. I don't know. I'm gonna fuck around and start crying. That's like the human depravity that I can't understand. Now, obviously, kids, don't kill people. Like, PSA, stay in school, don't kill people. But, like, let's put it this way. So, I got 2 kids, a wife, I have 5 cats and a dog. Right now, the 5 cats don't matter. They're fantastic, but for the moral of the story, they don't matter. So, the house is on fire. I can go in there 4 times to save everyone. I'm saving my dog 4 times. Okay? So, fuck the other people. That's where I'm at in life. It's fine.
Are you gonna throw the kids out too, or that comes after?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, they've been admitted. I'm gonna save the dog. I'm gonna walk the dog back in and save him again, just to be spiteful. I value animals much more over people, which is a weird place to be. Not that I would hurt either species, but it's who I am as a person.
Yeah, I
cannot handle hearing things about that or seeing things. Like, it's just I can't understand it. Okay, you killed your wife because she was banging every even number on your block. Not advocating for it, but at least I can kind of get behind that snap.
You can picture it. Yeah,
what is an animal gonna do? God damn it, Rex, you shit on the floor, now you're gonna pay. What?
Yeah. Well, they'll, in the book, there's going to be a tough chapter for you that maybe you just skip.
No, I'm going to go for it.
And it's on bestiality and necrobestiality, and it explains a lot of cases. We don't have to go into the cases specifically, but what I'll tell you is that
I give an outline so people, because it's kind of self-explanatory, but I would probably just lay it on the
So bestiality, unfortunately, is seeing a massive increase with law enforcement in arrest. I'm just off the charts. And what I related to is, I'm not saying this is a new thing for crime, but in the 70s or 80s, without the internet, it was kind of hard for individuals to get together and plan and have these bestiality parties. You can go to the web right now, and I listen to my book. There's 5 or 6 websites that you can go to called Beast Form, Pet Sex. They're live on internet, not on the dark web, on the regular web. Now these get taken down all the time, but they get put right back up. There's a podcast I talk about in my book that is live and it's current. It's on YouTube, and it's people talking about the love that they have of animals. I'm talking sexual love and okaying it. Fascinates me this can even be on YouTube, but it is. And we have 50 states in the U.S. We still have one state that doesn't outlaw bestiality. And only recently has Hawaii, New Mexico, and a few other states made it criminal to have bestiality. Before it was legal. Even one of my stories in Alaska was not illegal, and they couldn't charge an individual. We since, by state law, changed that. But it fascinates me that all 50 states don't have criminal charges against bestiality.
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna get 3 guesses on what that state is.
I bet you get it, but go ahead.
West Virginia.
You just got it.
Really?
Yep.
Fucking hillbillies.
Yep. And
Literally, figuratively.
Yeah, Hawaii, New Mexico, Wyoming were very recent in their court cases. In fact, I document in my book that Hawaii had a severe penalty for leaving your dog's poop and not picking up in your bag, but yet they didn't criminalize bestiality. So they recently did, but it fascinated me that that's a crime, but the other one isn't. So some of these stories will be hard to take because I'm an animal lover too, and I think it's, and I reference why people love animals more than humans sometimes, because you come home and your dog's always there to greet you. There's never a bad day. They're always your best friend. They support you. You know, where individuals and people can disappoint you. So there's a psyche behind that on why we love animals so much. Not in the bestiality sense. That's we're getting into mental illness there, and people that rationalize that it's okay or you can love who you want. It's all bullshit. I mean, it's just
yeah. Let me come across the weird fucking guy that's like, listen, you ever have fucking little Crosby taking a little look-see at you across the room and you're like, whoa, what was that tingle? It's never happened. You know why? Because it's weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't know. Oh, Christ. It takes all different kinds, man, to make the world go round, but I wish those people would just kind of fly off the little spinning little globe we have here. That's
Yeah, it's odd stuff. I mean, I can't explain their mentality behind it, but it's a growing issue. It's huge in the U.S. right now. Worldwide, it's huge.
I will tell you a small little story here about this is not really a segue, so yeah. But I've funny enough, through the Podmatch app, I've had a bunch of interviews. I've interviewed true crime people, cops, comedians. I had a mobster on here before that literally had to disguise his voice, which is pretty fucking cool. That was like oh, I'm making it, I'm famous. I still thought I was like, that's pretty cool. I had a sex therapist. Come on. And it wasn't the sex therapist you're going to think about where I'm like, man, I don't really hook up with my wife anymore because she gained 300 pounds. And I'm like, yeah, you're gross. Or, whatever. It was a pedophile kind of therapist, right? Cool. And obviously, I mean, your reaction was my point exactly, right? I think every normalized person is like, oof, yeah, burn him at the stake. And I still feel that way. But what she was able to do is she was able to humanize those people. And here's how she explained it to me. Through the years that she's been doing this, probably about 95% of people despise who they are. They hate it. They hate the fact that they have this desire or whatever you want to call it. And they would wish nothing more to not see a kid and not be aroused by it. And I think it's very difficult to break down that wall, just like just like how you did with a murder, right? Or serial killer. At the end of the day, they're still a person, right? I mean, they're batshit crazy, but they're still a person. Well, with these folks, they're still people too, and it's interesting that the majority of them they're just so grossly just wrapped up in their weird carnal gross desires that they hate what they are. And for whatever reason, that kind of struck me a little bit, and it made me, it didn't make me understand what they're doing. Don't hear what I'm not saying there, but it made me look at them a little different, knowing that at least they have, whether you want to call it remorse, whether, whatever you want to call it. I think like self-loathing is probably the best, title to put on it. But it almost made me feel good that they hate themselves for doing that. It not justifying it, but it almost makes it feel this is something that they are physically working on. They're not just overtly going out and doing that. So I don't know. I think I get
your point. And as somebody that's arrested many pedophiles, I may have a different perspective. And it's not to dehumanize anybody, and it's not that they don't think about their crimes, but I'll tell you, in my career, arresting murderers, robbers, burglars, sexual assault suspects, whatever you want to say, there's one category, which is pedophiles, that I believe, and from my experience, it's nearly impossible to rehabilitate. So I want to give everybody in life another chance, even if you're a robber. Do your prison time, come out. In my career and my background, and we track pedophiles and their crimes, I've never seen it. Not once have I seen it flip where they didn't try and reoffend or got back into it. So those individuals, categorically, I think we should lock up, because they're going to and be predators on society. It's not that we dehumanize them. And I tell you where the light bulb came on with me is I arrested one pedophile who was a multiple offender, and I was interviewing him, and I was really upset, right? Because he preyed on multiple victims. And I said, how could you do this? Like, you disgust me, and this is horrific. And he said to me, he's like, what's your sexual preference? And I said, what does that have to do with anything? He's like, what is it? You want a conversation? I'll tell you. So I said, well, I'm married. I like women. And he said, okay, tomorrow I'm going to tell you got to like men. You can only sleep with men. Could you do it? And I said, no, I like women. He's like, that's exactly how I am. I'll never change. And that kind of turned on the light bulb to me that maybe he couldn't change, and he'd prey on predators. So pedophiles it was tough for me. I think they've got to be incarcerated. It's
I can't I mean, absolutely, like, put them in a hole. Like, I don't care if this lady that I interviewed can humanize these people. You're still a danger to everything around you. And once you make that mistake once, you deserve whatever prison justice comes your way, because I am well aware, based on hearing many things, reading many things, their time is not enjoyable. And not that anyone's ever is, but word gets around, people find out, and they're like, because you and it makes sense. Like, look, you do this to a little daughter, a little son, and you got Jim Bob in there doing life. He's never seen his family again, but that's what he's going to think about when he is literally beating the shit out of you. So,
yep. No, it's prison. The code in prison is child predators, huge no-no, right? And then also those that harm women, huge no-no.
Yep.
Those two, you're in some trouble if you're in Gen Pop. You're probably gonna get tuned up at the very least.
Yeah. I don't think many of those folks end up making it out, honestly.
Yeah.
Or they just do some real dumb shit, go in the hole, and get, hopefully they just cannot do anything too crazy to keep themselves in there until they're able to get out. But I feel like they still find a way to get got.
Yeah, that's true.
Well deserved, I'm just saying. But yeah, I feel like now that I'm actually feeling sort of kind of better-ish, I can really kind of delve into the book and completely just because I do listen to a lot of true crime stuff, and there was one podcast to listen to. It's called Obscura, and I've actually interviewed Justin that runs that. Very, very, very good at what he does, and he makes a point to. He doesn't shy away from anything, but he also appreciates the victims, and I don't know. It's a good thing. I have them on the website and all that fun stuff, but I'm a
Cool.
big fan of true crime, and I definitely want to take the time out to actually read this book and really kind of digest it, because I feel like it's going to mess me up pretty good, and I'm strangely looking forward to that. But I don't want to keep you too much longer here. So where can we find the book?
Yeah,
Where can we find you? Where can
Yep, that's the book for your viewers, 50 Shades of Truth. It's cool.
There
It's
you go.
got a cool cover. And then the book's it's fresh out July 16th, I believe. So Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. It'll come to most
Oh
books.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. It'll come to most bookstores in the US. Bookstores that ordered takes a couple weeks to get in. So if you want a quick copy, the e-versions on Amazon instantaneous.
I was gonna say, is it on Audible too, or
Audible comes out in September. That one's a little delayed on the Audible. So that'll come out, but order on any of those. I have my own website, dougpfeiffer.com. You can order from the website if you want. It's, again, for your listeners, it's a unique twist on true crime. I think as extreme as the behavior in there is, I think you'll enjoy it. I throw in some dark humor. There's some fun chapters, so it's not totally a downer. I mean, it's got some good stuff in
Right.
there. So it's going to be different than your normal true crime for sure. So I want your listeners to understand that, but I think it's well worth it. I think it's eye-opening. Again, this isn't just Alaska-based. Some of my cases are in the U.S. and they're extraordinary. And my main theme here is that this is in everyday USA. Happens every day. This isn't unique to any area, as you know. So I think it's a fun read. I think that there'll be some positive feedback on it.
Yeah, I like the fact that once again you're kind of going against the grain a little bit. That's kind of one thing I've kind of pride this whole podcast thing I've been doing here for the last year and a half. It's not the conventional formatted thing. I like to kind of just have fun with it and just have it be very conversational, like what we did here. Yeah, I'm hoping that this disturbs me. And no, I'm not being silly. I'm really hoping this fucks me up a little bit.
Yeah, some of it's gonna, for sure. I mean, it's even when I reread it, it's like, I reimagine and revision the crimes like it happened. It's like, wow, that's it's not that I'm immune to it, but I lived through it, so it's a little bit easier for me. But some of the readers will be a little bit shocked.
Yeah. Look, man, I appreciate it. It was hard to kind of cram all this into an hour, but because there's always a bunch more questions, and I'm probably just gonna end up having you back for a part 2 at some point. After we, after maybe some folks get their handles on the books, and we can actually have like a live show and get folks in here to kind of ask some questions that they want to know and things like that. So I think that'd be a cool thing. So we can aim for, I don't know, a few months down the road, maybe have like the Audible launch be the next episode, kind of like a celebratory thing there. I can just send you the calendar link. We can squad up something there.
Yeah, let's do it. And if your viewers have some questions on certain crimes in the book or Alaska, have them come on in and I'll answer them all.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, there you go. So how was your first kind of experience in pod match here?
Seems pretty good.
Yeah. It's a pretty good thing. So all you got to do now is go back to it, hit complete, and everything is all good. This was live. We didn't have really many. We had a bunch of viewers kind of popping in and out.
Yep.
But that's also because I just saw this. So apparently you need to have a premium account on Twitter to live stream it now on Twitter. And Elon can suck my balls. So we're not doing that because Facebook just did that a few weeks ago. So as of right now, it's live on YouTube. So that's fine by me, but that's a little irritating, Elon, you greedy bastard.
Yeah, they're always going to get their money for sure. So
Yeah,
YouTube's pretty good.
absolutely.
So that'll be cool.
Yeah, I got plenty of subs on YouTube, so it works out.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this will go out immediately, and I'll send out some shorts, and I can send them to you too. So if you want to send them out to whoever you want to send them out to, that's perfectly fine too. But
Yeah,
I
I'll hook it up
your time.
on my website. So send them to me.
Oh, perfect. Love it.
All right, Rich.
All right,
well,
man.
if I'm ever back east, we'll have to grab a beer together.
Hey, there you. I mean, I'm way east, but yeah, absolutely, I ain't going anywhere. All right,
right,
buddy,
man.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, man.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.